Here on page 123 of Bernie's book is another interesting fact. CEOs of large corporations make over 260 times more than the average American worker. Imagine 260 times for the CEO.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Ben & Jerry's started, I think they had a policy in place that the CEO of Ben & Jerry's could only earn 7 times as much as their lowest paid worker. And they ended up removing that when Ben & Jerry stepped down as CEOs and they were doing a search. But still, that was, they removed that. But you got to believe they didn't go from 7 to 100. And we're talking on average, what was it,
260 times the average worker.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. How much money do these people need? I don't understand. I mean, after you have your second yacht, isn't that enough? It's very tough. And yet you look at just the growth in poverty. You look at the number of kids who are living off food stamps, and it's pretty disheartening. And I would say it doesn't represent who I think Americans are as a culture. We're a generous people. Yeah, we're independent, but as a whole, it doesn't fit to me that we would have so many people living in poverty while we have the richest of the rich increasing their net worth over and over and over. I mean, you look at the Wall Street crisis over the last several years, none of these people are in jail. They're back to getting their enormous bonuses, and it's unconscionable, as Bernie would say, unconscionable. And it really is. I don't see how you could live that way and feel good about yourself and get a good night's sleep and look your kids in the eye. But this is how people are, and I think it's not about demonizing individuals. It's about looking at policy that works for the whole community. And yeah, we got work to do, though.
Even if you look at it from the Republican or conservative point of view, these people with the families that have saved and have money, they've invested in corporations, and so they're stockholders. When a CEO makes 260 times, that's up into the millions of dollars. That's a lot more than he's worth. So what's happening? The income of these corporations that people have put their money into and invested, the stockholders are supposed to get the return, but the money is going to one person in the executive suite, and they're getting millions, maybe sometimes $10 million a year in income. But you could get someone to take that job for $500,000. So why can't that extra $9 million go to the stockholders in dividends if it's got to go somewhere? I have stock in companies, and I feel that it's really a ripoff. That if the CEO is getting the money, which should be going to the owners of the company.
Yep.
And of course, if it went to the owners, then they would be making enough so that the prices could be reduced, and then normal people would pay less for their when they went to the store, and it would just trickle down. But instead, it's all being incredible greed at the top.
Yep. And it's sort of un-American, I think. And so, you occasionally see the brave Republican who is sort of a trust buster or kind of concerned about the overreach of corporate power. But they rarely focus on the points you've made. But sometimes it is important to find those kinds of allies and see if you can. Unusual coalitions get attention, and getting attention is sometimes what you need to be successful in the legislative arena. I think, more puzzling than why aren't conservatives up in arms about this is why aren't people up in arms about this more? We do a good job when things like the war is hitting a peak, and there tends to be a cultural shift and people come out to rallies and stuff. But these basic economic realities don't generate that kind of interest enough to. I mean, you look at countries in Europe. They talked about increasing I think it was the work week in France, the standard work week, where our standard work week is 40 hours. I think theirs is 32 hours. And they were talking about making that 34, 35 hours. People were in the streets. I mean, we just don't do anything like that in this country. And you see it a little bit in Wisconsin. You see people taking over the State House, and it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. That's really inspiring to me, to see people come together and kind of say, enough is enough. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But we don't do that. We tend to, it's harder to rally people around these kind of bigger concepts. The war or something, or a bill, you can generally do, but we're not, in Vermont we have an active citizenry, but we're not super engaged in terms of these larger principles. There's not that outrage, although Bernie and Bernie's success politically in Vermont shows that people do gravitate to that message, but it hasn't pulled us into the streets yet.
I lived in France for a while,
Okay.
and everyone gets at least 6 weeks vacation a year in France. And they, as you say, they have the 34-hour work week.
34, okay.
And the education is free. It's a fundamental principle of the French Revolution that college should be, everyone should have an opportunity to go to college. And health care, they have national health insurance. Health care is free.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there in healthcare this session. Maybe we can talk about that. We took a big step in that direction. We're not there yet, but we've established it as a goal, and we have a path to get to that goal. And I think that's important. I was proud to be on that committee and play a role there. It's one of the places I most admire Governor Shumlin. His commitment to that issue seems very solid. Education, though, you talk about higher education. I mean, Vermont is dead last, I think, if 49th or 50 in terms of state money going to our state colleges and universities. We just don't do enough to make it affordable, and it's increasingly out of reach for average Vermonters. And you look at this graph again, if people's incomes are going backwards, and tuition keeps climbing, and the state assistance to the universities keeps declining or not growing anyway, which is where we're at today, no wonder it's getting out of touch for too many people. And that has serious implications for our economy and for jobs down the road, and to say nothing of quality of life for our young people. These are big problems, and I'm not going to introduce a bill that's going to solve that. These are big societal, systematic challenges that we need to be willing to address. And right now, it's very hard to even have a conversation about higher ed because it's just money, and we don't have a lot of money, and we're resistant to raising more money. So it's tough.